Learning outcome 1.1, the components of language. Are there any universal aspects of language that is shared by all languages? So we look at linguistics here. Linguistic is the study of language, and they're divided into four parts, which is phonology, semantics, syntactics, and pragmatics. So we're going to be studying the next section to understand what makes up language, firstly. Let's begin. The first is phonology, which is the study of the sound system of language. This looks at how do I pronounce my words here? Which units of sound, the phonemes, are meaningful for a specific language? Are they sounds which are universal? And do different languages use different sounds? Often when we are pronouncing words, you can indicate where we are from and also what country we are from in terms of regional and also, around the world. So it's about tomato, tomato, and so on. So it's how we are saying the words. And it's also difficult for those who do not speak our language. They'll have difficulty pronouncing certain words. And this can also indicate, where they're from as well. In the textbook, they also say that some African languages make use of the sounds of mba and njo, which are challenging for English speakers because the sounds are unfamiliar to them. Therefore, in terms of this section, all you need to know is phonology is how you pronounce those words. Tomato, tomato, what other words can you think of for pronouncing? I'm trying to think of different ones right now, but that one just comes on the top of my head. Potato, potato, all of those things, how we're saying the words. Okay, let's go into the next one, which is semantics. Semantics means the study of meaning, which is, it's kind of giving different words for the same thing. So words that can communicate the meaning we tend to get across in communication. Semantics focuses on the meaning of a single word. And there are some examples there. For example, what is chair? Do we define a chair by its shape? Does a throne count as a chair? Do we define it by its function? If I sit on a table, does that make it a chair? Different languages have different words for the same object. So that's why when people, say like, oh, this is what it means, you might say, oh, that's just semantics, because it's the same object, but there's different words for it. If we look in table 5.3 on the following page, it also depends where you come from, that you'll notice that, oh, this is what we call it. So I have put for our additional sources there in your lesson plan, a video you can follow of the difference between American English versus South African English. So for example, if I say, and I'm from England or America, I say, oh, the traffic light. What would we call that in South Africa? Do you know? We would call it a robot. I don't know, maybe you could do some research to why we would call it a robot, but we call traffic lights robots. So it's kind of that sort of thing that we have different words for the same object depending on where we come from. And if you look at table 5.3, we have the difference between British culture versus the American US culture, where in Britain they would call jumper, and in the US they call just a sweater. And then I think we lean, because we used to be colonized by Britain, we would say jersey than jumper. And then we have pants versus underwear from the US. Trousers is pants, biscuit means cookie, chips means French fries, or potato chips, I think, and then crisp is potato chips. See, all these different sort of linguistics here of semantics that just mean the same thing. And this is obviously going to cause a lot of misunderstanding, confusion, if you don't understand that the culture has a different word for that, what you mean. Okay, let's go on to the next section, which is our syntactics. Syntactics is the study of the structure of a language. You might hear a lot about this in terms of English when you would have syntax, which is the rules to create a meaningful sentence, this is the structure of how the order of the word should be to convey that particular meaning. So because I'm putting the words in specific order, I'm trying to convey this meaning. Whereas if we kind of swap them around, they would have completely different meaning. For example, the red car smashed into the blue car. This makes a big difference if I would say the blue car smashed into the red car. Therefore, I'm putting it in the correct syntax to convey the meaning that I want to put there. Each language then has a particular rule of how they're going to structure the sentence depending on the gender form, the subject versus verb object. You'll probably see this a lot in, I think, the French language, which that they have different sort of formalities there as well. And because of this, we need to learn the rules that govern a language. So not all languages are set up the same way when it comes to syntactics. Okay, we have other examples here. To express the position in English, we would add an S, John's hat, with the comma, or the man's hat. Where in the Sesotho languages, they have no personal pronouns for male and female. Therefore, some of them might say, the man she walks to the school, or the man is leaving walking. Thus, learning a new language, we need to learn these words and the particular rules of it. Okay, are you still with me? Are we ready for the last component of language? Let's go into the last one, which is pragmatics. Pragmatics is how, when we're using language, we need to think about where we are in the particular context, because we have different purposes of when we would speak out for that and where we would be. So an example, which is quite a nice example, is, do you know what time it is? And then a native speaker would be like, yes. So I've heard this example used for in American. This is obviously very generalized because not everyone is the same. There's individual variation. But they say in the American culture, if you ask them, do you know what time it is? They're going to say, yes, I do know what time it is. And I suppose if you said this in South Africa, you know what time it is, we know instantly, okay, it is like, 9:30, for example. So it just shows that you need to be aware of where you are when you're using language, because not everyone's going to understand like how you're using that language there. Which is quite interesting that, languages are very much influential in the culture. So we can also employ more than one purpose for the same words. They say, for example, here, that's a lovely outfit. You might interpret it in different ways depending on who is saying it. Is it your friend or an aunt that or a lecturer? So it also depends on who the person is that might be giving you that language in that particular context. You don't know who's saying that's a lovely outfit. Is it a friend or boyfriend, someone flirting with you, and so on. Okay. This now concludes the components of a language. Make sure you're writing down notes in your little sections there for your lecture, so you just can, further your understanding of this. Let's move on to learning outcome 1.2, which is language and perception, looking at the power effects of labels and the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis.